Okay, everyone, thanks for coming out to our June meeting, our June DBA meeting. It's Thursday, June 7th, and my name is Terry Ryburn. I'm the president of the DBA. And what we're going to have is first a couple of announcements, and then Peter Forman is going to speak. He's the president and CEO of the South Shore Chamber of Commerce. He's going to give us a projection of what business is going to be like over the next 10 years. And Peter, remind me, because we're videoing this, we can play his projections next year and see if they come true. But we'll allow some time for question and answers, so you can ask Peter questions about projections of business, or if you'd like to know more about what the South Shore Chamber is up to. Is there any announcements? I believe. Go ahead. Come on. Ann? Yeah.
Duxbury 375 birthday is coming up this week. We are having the barbecue, the lobster clam bake at the beach. We've already started setting up things. It's really exciting. We have about 25 tickets left at $4.50. It's very, very exciting. We are having full lobster clam bake, lobsters, clams, mussels, kielbasa, chicken, the whole gamut. We're having Rod Walkie, the Barnyard Dogs, is our band, and starts at 6 o'clock to 11. The following week, just so you know, that's the only thing that costs money. And just so everybody knows, we fundraised. This is costing over $100 a person. The cost is $50 to you. Our committee has intensively, since last July, have been fundraising for this, so that the cost would be affordable to as many people as possible. So, everybody, parties cost a lot of money to run, as we all know. I'm very proud of my committee. We've had a great time. We have a lot more to come for the year, but the following week, we are with the Duxbury DSU. We're doing Summerfest, which they've done a few years before, but we're actually sponsoring it with them this year. And that's on Saturday, and that's at the DSU, and that's going to be awesome. And a really fun day, the actual birthday is June 17th, which is next Sunday, the 17th, and it's Father's Day, but you never know what to do with Dad's Day, so we kind of said, bring him to a picnic, and we have an 8-by-4-foot cake coming from Antilio's with our logo. And we have proclamations coming. We're having Snug Harbor Chorus is singing. We have Jackson Weatherby. We have face painting. It's going to be a wonderful afternoon at the Millennium Green, which is down by the Meter Hall's corner, the town green. So that's going to be absolutely wonderful.
And the essay winners.
And we have essay winners. We did an essay contest for all the high school kids from second grade up. And that they will be coming, winners will be coming, and they'll be reading their essays. So it's going to be a really fun family day.
It's a bring your own picnic.
Bring your own picnic. It's from 12 to 3. This summer, after that, just so you kind of know, we have our lecture series again. August 15th is the next lecture series, and we have some in the fall. We are playing a candlelight series for the fall. I think the first one may start September 8th, so as we get to the summer, you'll see posters up and stuff. But there'll be 3 things. Brian Jones, I don't know if anybody knows about Brian. He's from the what's the name of the chorus? Boston Chamber Singers. They're really wonderful, and I'm just having a mind freeze. They're coming. We're having the Philharmonic. Steve is working with the high school bands and the chorus, and we're doing an evening that night. And then we have the South Shore Conservatory people, faculty doing Through the Ages. We're doing a song. So, we have a lot going on. We have some fantastic programs. We also have, if everybody's really good, and the 375 committee is not too tired, we are having a Christmas celebration after holidays. So, great year. We're having, this next week is going to be wonderful. So, I hope everybody can come out and visit.
And the 4th of July folds in as part of the theming of this year. We have a great town. Keep your sponsorship up, and thank you for your support.
And if anybody needs tickets for Clam Bake, I have to leave because I have to go to engagement, but we have like 25 tickets left. French Memories has 11 left, but I have them, so if you want to call Duxbury Mortgage, just look up the number, it rings to my cell phone, and I can tell you if I have tickets left, because those are going to probably by tomorrow afternoon will be gone. So I hope to see everybody there. So thank you.
Could I just announce, we have an opening this Sunday from 1:30 to 3:30 at the museum. It's a traveling show. It's going all over the United States. It's all pottery. a professor from pottery school in Minnesota and his students, and it's amazing how different pottery can be, and everybody's invited.
Oh, that's great. One more announcement I forgot about actually is we're working at the details of having another barbecue this July. Work with George on it. She's going to check the tide schedules, whatever. We had the barbecue last year right at the Maritime School. It was absolutely gorgeous. I remember the weather was awesome.
I can't guarantee that. I have to find a day when it's an early tide, so our kids are gone.
Yeah, we're trying to make it happen.
There's cover. There's cover.
Can you guarantee the weather?
No. I got it for, I used up my dance card for opening it.
Okay, is there any other announcements? Okay, we'll turn over to Peter. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. Well, as Terry said, I'll give a little forecasting about the future. It is going to be very bright. We're all going to become very wealthy, and we're all going to be very successful. So with that, I will open it up for questions and the answers. As the optimists can have the wine. But I do appreciate the chance to come down and talk a little bit about what I'm seeing on the South Shore for the next decade and how groups like this fit into it. I actually don't have to be here to give the speech because Paula Harris is the chairman of the South Shore Chamber of Commerce this year, and she's heard me give it in various forms for now about 6 months. So that's why she's sitting down. It's like, oh no, not again. She's got a text because she said I've heard it all before. But let me tell you what we see coming down for the South Shore and why I'm particularly bullish about what is happening to our area. I'm very optimistic about how we come out of the national recession and why Massachusetts may be doing well, but also the South Shore in particular. As you all know, the state has fared better than most of the rest of the country with this recession, mostly for all the wrong reasons. Partly because we did not have the same housing crash as the rest of the nation, since we made it very difficult for people to build homes here for the last 30 years. And the effect of that through the 80s, 90s, early part of the last decade was that we were losing a lot of our workforce, 25 to 45-year-olds. They were moving out of this area. You might remember, if you stretch your memory to the pre-recession days when the housing bubble burst, there was a great concern about our children and grandchildren won't be able to live in the town they grew up in because of the high cost of housing. So our workers were leaving, we didn't have the overbuilding of housing, and the result was when it all crashed down, we were probably a little bit we had less to crash, so we were in a little better position. When we come out of this recession, we're going to face that same problem. And a lot of housing experts in this state project that we are about 30,000 housing units shy of what we need to be able to keep a healthy workforce in this state and be able to drive the economy. Because if there are no workers, a lot of the larger businesses disappear. They go to other places where there are workers. And that's important in understanding our strategic advantage on the South Shore. Because of the rail lines that have reopened, the old Colony line and then Greenbush, and because of some reuse of very large parcels like the South Weymouth Air Base, the Hingham Shipyard, Cordage Company, Quincy Shipyard, some very large parcels that are tied in with mass transit, particularly rail. We have some enormous residential building taking place. Between about 7 or 8 projects alone, from Quincy down into Plymouth and Carver, we're scheduled to be bringing on in excess of 10,000 housing units over the next 10 to 20 years. Now, if you remember, housing experts say we're about 30,000 housing units short of where we should be. If the South Shore is adding 10 to 20,000, 30 to 60% of that means all the opportunity for younger professionals to stay in this state, will be on the South Shore because of the housing. The housing costs will be slightly more affordable than the rest of the state and certainly more affordable than Boston. And the beauty of these projects, they're almost all tied into Boston by ferry or rail, which means we'll get people who are working in Boston and want to live in a slightly more affordable housing market. What that triggers in time is that more companies that need employees are going to come down here because this is where the workforce is. And we've already seen that with some companies. And one great example is Blue Cross Blue Shield that built the massive new building that they have up on Hingham Street in Rockland. And they did a survey years ago when they needed to expand and do a new building. And they looked at building in Worcester, the South Shore, Boston, Merrimack Valley, southern New Hampshire. And they chose down here because they looked at where their employees came from and where they think future employees will live. And it's down here on the South Shore. So our future is looking really bright because of these big projects. The largest is the South Weymouth Naval Air Station. People are already living there. We have contracts for the first 500 homes and apartments, and people are moving in, and the builders are expanding what they already started just late last year. Roadways are being put in to connect Route 18 to Route 228. We're widening Route 139 in Marshfield to open an industrial park up there for development. So all the pieces are being put in place for this great migration of people to come down here, and we have to follow it up by encouraging more businesses to come down to take advantage of that. So that's why I'm particularly excited about the South Shore and where our future is for the next decade or score, because we will become the fastest growing region in all of New England. The challenge for us, we're going to have a few challenges. One of those is making sure that we open up enough commercial land, and through our local permitting and the infrastructure with roads, water, sewer, allow companies to come down, because companies generally, unless they're selling in this particular market, have lots of opportunities nationally and internationally, and they're not going to wait 3 or 4 years to get permits from local boards to be able to hang a sign or paint their building yellow instead of red. They'll just go somewhere else. So we've got to work on that. But the other challenge we have is the community development, and whether communities are either going to be open for business and helping communities that are going to be facing a lot of growth, because so many of our towns are underfunded with resources that they don't have the technical ability in many cases to deal with some of the growth and development issues that they're facing. We helped a town on the South Shore just on a road project. We funded the money to actually help with the design of a road and then get state financing for it, because even though it's a well-run town, they just didn't have the staff. So we have to think as a business community, how are the towns going to handle this growth, and who's going to lead the towns? And that becomes a real interesting challenge for us. Who's going to lead the community spirit and the community development? And here we run into a national problem. It used to be 40, 50 years ago that your community leaders were easy to spot. They were the people in the largest office buildings, whether it was the 3-story building on Main Street in a small town or the towers in downtown Boston. The people who owned those buildings ran the biggest companies, had the biggest stake in the community, and had the greatest resources to make things happen. It isn't the case anymore. The larger the building, the more likely the ownership is out of state or out of country. And the real community leaders aren't going to be in a downtown building. They're going to be working out of their home, because that's the nature of where business is going. And so we come to a real difference in terms, or a real change in the paradigm of who the business leaders are that are making things happen in a community and driving some of those decisions. The largest companies have deep resources, very little commitment to their community, whether you call that a town or a region. The people who have the greatest commitment to their community are working out of home offices. So we have to think about, as a chamber, how do we connect those community leaders who are now independent contractors or small businesses but have the greatest passion for where we're living and working, with the deep pocket resources of the larger companies that have essentially absentee ownership. And that's where an association like a Chamber of Commerce comes into play, of trying to marry those two ends of the spectrum, the people who care with the people who have resources that help make things happen. And that's why a group like the Business Association is really important, because with all of the growth coming, with all of the issues that will happen with that, we can't depend just on our local leaders and our local officials to make things happen. I was in public office, and public officials can do just so much, but a lot of the agenda setting has to come from people in the community who are not in office. And the business community are the biggest stakeholders in that. And so we need lots of aggregation of local businesses connected with the regional associations like the South Shore Chamber, and then we're connecting with statewide associations and national ones, just to try to make things happen, to line up the right environment for the kind of growth we're going to have. But we're in a horse race, because this growth is barreling down at us. And we have a choice. We're either going to become like Cape Cod North, where all the people filling the homes are going to be older, wealthier people looking at a service economy, and maybe not having the employees who can manage that, which is what's happening to a large extent in the Cape. Or we're going to become Boston South, which is a lot of younger professionals coming down, starting businesses, and being the workforce for larger employee-based companies. And we have to figure out how we can match that up, so we've got that workforce coming, businesses coming, not overwhelming the towns, but the towns being open to them. So it's a very active, ambitious agenda that we have as a Chamber of Commerce, but it's really an active, ambitious agenda that all of you as business owners have, and most of all of us have as residents of the area. So I'm really optimistic about where we're going, but there's a lot of work to get there. And with that, Bill and Paula will make you rich. So you'll have to talk to them. Bill answer questions on how to do
We
that.
want those old people like taking over.
You might, but
I have a question, or just sort of maybe a open for discussion point. John and I serve on the Economic Advisory Council for the town, and we just had a meeting yesterday. That, I'm hearing what you're saying. We're sort of mandated with trying to figure out how to attract business to Duxbury, how to, streamline that whole process. And, with what I'm hearing you saying, the fact that as of July 1st, we're going to be a part of the Old Colony planning. We had formerly been part of the further north, that we were the southernmost and smallest town in.
of the metropolitan planning,
Yeah, we were part of the MAPC, and we still are.
Yeah.
Duxbury.
But we are
Until
now,
July, yeah.
as of town meeting this year, we're now going to be part of the Old Colony.
Okay.
And so what our town planner has told us is that we have opportunity through that to have a little higher opportunity for grants. And so our committee is looking at what kind of grants we should be going after to enhance the environment for businesses in town. So, we had been looking at things like just unifying our business districts and so forth, and I'm thinking, hearing what you're saying, we should be thinking a little differently about where we're going, given the information that you're putting forth right now.
Without injecting myself into what your planning is, some of the things some of the trends that I see with local economic planning efforts in communities, they will make a few typical mistakes, and what we try to advise them to approach planning in a certain way. The first mistake is don't base your planning around where you can get the grants. So, not to discourage you from looking for the grants, but don't let the availability of government money decide where your planning is going to go. And I have no idea what
No,
grants will be available.
that's good to hear.
But don't do that. The other mistake that that local groups will always make is, gee, we have a vision for what our main street should look like. Let's decide what company we want to invite into our town. And they will invest time and money into what is often, for lack of a better term, a fool's mission. Don't take that as an insult. But they'll often say, let's go up to Freeport, Maine and invite LLB because that's exactly the company we want down here. Doesn't work that way. There are professional site selectors set up. This becomes a very sophisticated business. So trying to get a well-known company to come into an area, it becomes very risky, almost a losing proposition to think you're going to find them.
We've more been hearing what types of businesses the community wants as opposed to specific companies.
Then you can set it up because our advice is be ready for the company and business that finds you. And be ready with permitting. So you mentioned the process of permitting.
Right, which is why we wanna like
Although
do
we might
some-
note that in fact, the most successful such venture, contrary to your caution, okay, that's been a smashing success, was getting foodies into the old A&P in Duxbury recently. But understand, Duxbury has like a tiny fraction of 0% of business-owned land and has a long-established hostility toward any business that isn't a local business. So there's no real question of economic development in Duxbury, although from time to time, in fact, that's how the Duxbury Business Association got started in 1992, when I was on the Economic Development Committee at the time, which had been constituted with the intention of doing substantial commercial development by Tom Grew. Who had presided over a major redevelopment of downtown Winchester, I think it was. And he had Hal Kiotis, who was the planner at the time, researching all the undeveloped areas in town and working up plans to redevelop them. There was a plan at the time to sewer Washington Street by expanding the sewage treatment plant and to make a major little business development center in Snug Harbor, which had it succeeded, the Duxbury Bay Maritime Academy would never have occurred because they wanted to have shops and a restaurant and stuff like that there. That was eventually crushingly defeated. And then similarly later on, the big success in recent years was bringing foodies to Duxbury, which at the time had one other store in Boston, in the South End, and has been a smashing success. Betsy Sullivan, who was a selectman at the time, did an incredibly good job of enticing them in. Precisely the thing that, I would agree with what you said, by the way, but Duxbury is not a community that has ever shown any inclination to back business development. Duxbury is a community that has repeatedly indicated that they want to have people like Bill and Paul as clients.
People come in for the rural aspect.
Exactly. And so just FYI. But it goes to another interesting question which is raised here, which is, talk about a little bit the differences, similarities and differences between the South Shore, because I belong to both, if I paid up, which I may or may not because I keep lapsing, but then I give in and I tend to, but I belong both to, or have, or maybe if I have paid my bills, both South Shore Chamber and Plymouth Chamber. Talk about the differences and the similarities of the two.
The similarities are both looking at two things. One is serving existing businesses in the service area to help them grow their market share. And then Plymouth, unlike most local chambers, has been good at looking at how they grow the marketplace with economic development. Plymouth is primarily a local chamber. They'll call themselves Plymouth area, but it really is focused on on Plymouth. Unlike most local chambers, though, they're very good at doing the serving current business needs and looking ahead to 10 years, 20 years down the road. And they've done a wonderful job there. They're a very well-run chamber.
Very tight with Terry Murray's office.
Yeah, and so their political advocacy is working mostly through the Senate President, which is great as long as the Senate President is there. The other difference is they will have more of a, though they are not a tourism chamber per se, because there are an awful lot of members who benefit from the tourism, there will be a little bit more of the tourism local event activity than the regional chamber. We truly are a regional chamber, even though we're headquartered in Quincy. We are looking at the entire South Shore and even beyond as part of an economic base for the area and whatever.
Is it not true that, I mean, geographical area, their area is bigger, and in terms of development and expansion, Plymouth and that area, Carver, down to the canal, west, Middleborough, that's actually got much huger development potential than the area closer to Boston, is it not? If you look over 25 years.
Wouldn't quite say that, because
Really?
we are, Plymouth is kind of interesting. It's the southern end of the South Shore. They have some opportunity for the Cape, because some businesses find it tough to expand down the Cape, so they benefit a little bit from barriers on the Cape. In time, they will benefit because of Route 44 opening up 24 and beyond. So there's a lot of upside potential on that tier. As a very large region, I'll talk south of Boston going down to Providence, we have two big influence centers for all of southeastern Mass, which will go down into the South Coast, Fall River, New Bedford area. In this section, it is drawing down from Boston. Metropolitan Boston is expanding, finally reaching further south here. That is our lead growth potential. That's why the rails came down and where we're going to see all the development. It's coming out of Boston. In about 20 years, when Rhode Island gets back on its feet, there is a larger regional pull where Fall River, New Bedford, 195 line is growing because of some of the growth that was coming out of Rhode Island. And in time, we will move our base from being mostly a north-south axis up and down the shoreline to Boston to being more regional and having east-west down towards the Providence area.
Let me offer you an assertion and then ask you to respond to it.
Sure.
I'll make an assertion. By 2050, Plymouth will be a major center of its own and will have dramatically outgrown, in terms of percentage growth, by a huge amount, will have outgrown Boston metropolitan area and will have outgrown Providence.
I think you had too much wine.
You think that's not going to happen?
I don't see that. They will be a major influence. The reality is all economies become less localized. So Boston will be unique. Boston just has such unique features. It will always be the center of the foundation of most economic activity in Eastern Mass, perhaps in New England. So no, it's Plymouth. No other town.
Probability at all of Plymouth becoming a major focal point of its own.
Sub-regional, but yeah, I can't see that except perhaps with housing development. Good commercial base, and they've done it, but it is not going to become an economic driver for southeastern Mass. No community will. We're all going to be feeding off of the sun of Boston. That's just the way it is. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Question regarding, I mean, something I tripped across just today, and it's more germane to the South Shore Chamber. The idea of floating a fund, of an investment fund that would back up the investment you're talking about from the state. and also be a way for other business owners to invest in the future of the South Shore. In other words, it would be a fund just for investing in the South Shore. Let's speak to that for a second, because I just got wind of that today.
It makes a lot of sense. We are going to have, one of the other strengths we have beyond all of the workforce that's coming down is all of the career changers who live here, who work in big Boston corporations, starting their own business. There's a lot of creativity there. Those people are going to be needing angel investors, pre-venture capital, eventually venture capital. Conventional financing through banks only goes so far, and in a lot of areas in the country, one of the big economic development features of government or a private agency is trying to match up entrepreneurs with private investors. So we've had some discussion through our Economic Development Corporation in the Chamber about how can we help some companies that might have trouble with conventional bank financing, and what can we do with that? Now in the South Shore, it's still very much in the area of angel investors. In some areas, I'm thinking Pittsburgh as an example, medical institutions, research companies, their economic development plan was to pull together a fund just like that, so that the companies coming out of the universities and the hospitals could get some of that money and then stay in Pittsburgh. And it's that capital fund and access that has really driven a lot of Pittsburgh's growth.
More like
Some of that was through the Heinz Foundation, but their focus was keep building the medical research, marry it to the universities, and then get those investment funds. And both the private sector and government participated in that. Now, much bigger area, much larger funds.
For the South Shore Chamber, that would be the perfect incubator. I mean, it would make sense if that could be a conduit to something like that happening.
Some of us have had a little bit of discussion about the what ifs and how would you do that, but it's only at that
Okay.
stage. But
That's fair.
as the growth comes down and more people are doing it, it's an area some of us are at least looking at, whether that's through the chamber or not.
Right.
I think that is going to be one of the issues to promote growth is what is the capital access? Because a lot of the Boston venture capital, angel investor funds, it's still pretty much focused Boston, west, north. We're really the last area that the metropolitan Boston's area was expanding into.
Any talk of any university popping up on the South Shore other than Britain?
I haven't heard of any. And we're not likely to have that formula of strong, of a research university and research hospitals in the area. We're not likely to have that mix, and particularly where it's so concentrated up in Cambridge and Boston. So we have to feed off of that and figure out how to feed off it, and that's fine too.
I think Don has a question.
Have any businesses approached you about the attractiveness of the South Shore? Or people putting on feelers?
Sure. I'm seeing it in two areas. We want to not get most businesses would not come to a South Shore, would not come to the Chamber of Commerce to say, I want to come into that area. They have site selectors and developers doing it. We see it in two areas. One is major developers and development money coming to the South Shore because they see great opportunity. Perfect examples of that are the South Weymouth Air Base, with national developers coming in, managing that, and bringing in other national players to fill that out. Downtown Quincy project's another example. So people who are looking for these opportunities nationally, who have all sorts of data, all sorts of programs, and all sorts of experts, have said, South Shore, Boston, the South Shore area, rich targets of opportunity for growth. We're also seeing it with retailers or national brands. I've seen it with retail stores, restaurants, and even hotels who are in the same market. It's not that they have an affinity for the South Shore because they grew up here, but they're looking at where are there healthy markets and opportunities. So the Derby Streets, the South Shore Plazas, you're seeing strong national retail brands there because they've looked at the demographics and the trends and say high growth potential, and they're all very happy. We're seeing it with national restaurant chains, which is really important because I think food drives an awful lot of economic development. I think that's what gets a lot of people to think about venturing outside their community, going somewhere else. Let's try the restaurants. So we see some of the national chains coming in, mostly at South Shore Plaza, for example, but their site selectors have said that's an area we want to be. I almost never have, I don't think I've ever had an individual company come and say, gee, we want to come here, is this a good place for us to be? We just hear about it through other ways and then try to help them with the state or local efforts to be able to get in here. And so we'll work with towns, to your question. Hingham, we did a report because the Hingham officials came to us and said, we have a little bit of land on Derby Street. People have 20 different ideas. Can you as a business community help us think it through? So part of the recommendations we have for local economic development groups is, first of all, see what's around you and think about what are those economic drivers around you, and then pick what kind of community you think you want to be and how you would fit into that picture. So that would
Well, we
that would
also
be the
delved
advice.
in a couple of years ago to surveying the community as to what they wanted, this community, just to get a pulse on, what businesses people want.
Yep. Yep.
I actually did some research on what the projections are for Duxbury, and from what I read is there's going to be more high net worth individuals moving into Duxbury. And why are they moving in? Well, it might be the new schools, and we better hope they want to move in because the taxes are going to go up 20%. But I think they like the beach, the zoning, the schools, they like the neighborhood. So that's the projection. The downside is, and I'm already feeling it a little bit, is the people are going to be moving in around, my neighbors around me are going to have a higher net worth than me, so I'll come off like the Beverly Hillbillies to those new people moving in. But I think there's a real opportunity for groups that service high net worth individuals, which is the financial planners, real estate. You gotta love those high net worth individuals coming in, looking at that top end real estate. If you own a bakery, they're gonna want their croissants and cappuccinos that they're used to. And we already have one member here.
And if you take care of their children in the summer.
Yes, absolutely. They're gonna want the kids in the sailing schools, and they're gonna be making high net worth donations to nonprofits around town. So I see the character of this town as a bedroom community is going to continue to be a real draw. And if you decide to retire and, heaven forbid, move out, you're going to be able to flip your house at a nice profit. So
Not at the moment so easily unless on the high end, but Duxbury, this is something that I argued actually 20 years ago. Duxbury naturally wants to be a carriage trade town, but it never was until recently, and it's coming more and more so. But Duxbury is basically a very restrictive in terms of development, residential, but carriage trade town as far as businesses go. And that's really where I think that Foodies has been such a huge success, because Foodies is a carriage trade kind of business. And more you see that parking lot filled the way it never was at the A&P. And in terms of the retail zone, it's like that's why I wasn't keen about the Dunkin' Donuts, although that does very well. But it's basically in itself, Duxbury is very much of a carriage trade town. That it's sort of like a mini Aspen or a mini Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket.
And by the way, regionally, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's a place for that, just as long as you recognize that may be the community's character and preference, but it feeds into a much larger regional dynamic and benefits from a regional dynamic. So.
And is actually suffering a bit in real estate values right now because there's an awful lot of people underwater with their mortgages who bought in 2005 and
That's temporary.
We're not alone in that.
No,
Yeah, right.
not at all.
Do you ever see a commuter boat going other than from Hingham, like Plymouth, with their, has there been any consideration
Yeah, there's been some thought that you might be able to get some of the higher speed hovercrafts going from Cottage Park, for example, up there. I don't know if, with the option of rail, and it's an hour ride into South Station from Plymouth, I don't know with that option, or with perhaps widening Route 3 to expand that capacity, if the hovercraft technology is an attractive enough option or
You
feasible.
gotta burn a lot of fuel to get from Plymouth to Fox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think at times it will happen
And
because
in fact, if you look at what's going on, they're cutting down on the rail service right now
It's
because
not, there aren't many trains that go to Plymouth.
not to Cottage right now.
No, they go to Kingston.
well, even Kingston has, been limited and, looks like it's getting cut back.
Little bit on the weekends,
On the
but the
weekends.
ridership's been very good there.
What's happening with Cottage?
They're taking down more buildings, so I think they're ones, that's a group that did not get too deeply into the housing development before the crash, so.
Not for lack of trying.
Well, yeah, but probably,
They're sort of-
probably in the long run,
They're,
they've been to their
they're in better
advantage,
shape
so.
than Plymouth Rock Studios at the moment, but everything's relative.
But that's still.
Lou and his brother would like to be doing better than they are, I can guarantee you.
Oh, sure. Well, everyone would like to be doing better, but they didn't get caught having built a lot
Well,
and then no
cross
occupancy.
figures, not yet. Who knows what the,
Oh, it's gonna be a great
Are there
project.
housing plans for Cottage Park?
the very ambitious plans for Cottage Park, but that's out of his territory, so.
No, we cover
I know.
the, any of the regional advocacy issues from Randolph down to Plymouth. We'll
But
weigh in.
that gets to a fundamental point, though, that an awful lot depends on where the US economy goes over the next few years. I mean, if we are in fact on our way to a solid recovery, it's all goodness, but it's not without doubt that we're on the way to a solid recovery at this point.
Whether we bleed less than the rest of the nation or grow faster than the rest of the nation, we will be ahead, I think,
agree.
of most of the
Definitely.
rest of the
Yeah.
nation. That's why we live in.
But the ability of
great
things like
section.
Cottage Park to take off, or even Weymouth Naval Air Base to take off, is gonna be tied, how soon that happens, when it happens,
Sure,
is gonna very much depend on the overall.
sure, but we're there ready to take advantage of the opportunity, and other parts of the country are gonna still be digging out from this, so
If you have cash, it's a good time to.
it's always a good time if you have cash.
Well, thanks, Peter. Appreciate
Okay.
your speech.
Great.
And thanks for I'd like to thank Matt Bignew, the director of Alden Kindred, for hosting the meeting. Matt, would you like to say a word?
We're now open for the season, so Wednesday through Saturday we're giving tours noon to 3:30. So come on down. There'll be a few other events throughout the year. In fact, in a few minutes, if anyone wants a tour, I'm happy to open the
So
house.
where's Ring?
Oh,
What's he
that's
doing
nice.
today that he's not here? I expected him here.
Well, Rick doesn't work here.
No,
so-
but he's almost always here when there's something happening here.
He used to be. He's not here as much as he would.
Really?
He might tell you these days.
Did you offend him or something?
No, of course, I'm a very endearing individual.
Just teasing.
No, he gets involved like a lot of them in some of the events, but no, the day to day, it's actually it's me. So I welcome you to come back, take a look at the Clipper and other media streams for what we're doing. Check us on Facebook and all these other sites. But otherwise, like I said, come on down. We're always here for meetings. Well, Bill has left, but other people. We're always opening the space up for organizations. So you need to have an event or you want to come by or use the barn, come on by. Just give me a call. We're willing to work with you, and I'm also willing to give tours. So, like I said, if anyone does want a tour when we're done, I'm happy to do that. The camera can't come along, unfortunately. And I guess I'm just here for questions. So, Terry, thank you guys very much.
Thanks again, Matt.
Appreciate it. And trying to make out here.